From a disturbed boy in 1950s Indiana discovering he could move things with his mind, to a full-scale interdimensional war threatening to swallow the entire planet, here is the complete story of Stranger Things explained in the actual chronological order things happened. So, let's go all the way back, because this story technically starts before Henry Creel was even born. In 1943, the US Navy was conducting some extremely shady experiments as part of something called Project Rainbow, which you might know better as the Philadelphia Experiment. The USS Eldridge was this Navy ship they were using for secret government tests, and on October 28th of that year, something went catastrophically wrong. The ship was accidentally transported to this other dimension, this void of darkness that would later become known as the Abyss. Almost the entire crew died in the process, but one man survived the disaster, a captain named Brenner. This guy would go on to become the Dr. Martin Brenner we all know and hate, the papa who would eventually run Hawkins National Laboratory and experiment on children with psychic abilities. So yeah, the man responsible for so much suffering in the story got his start by literally traveling to another dimension and surviving to tell the tale, though of course he kept all of that classified for decades. Now fast forward to somewhere between 1945 and 1950, and Henry Creel is born to Victor and Virginia Creel. The family seems normal enough at first, and Henry has an older sister named Alice. Victor served in the army during World War II, where he accidentally ordered a civilian attack while fighting in France, something that would haunt him with guilt for the rest of his life. Things start getting weird around 1907 or 1958 when young Henry is involved in some kind of incident in a Nevada cave. This is where things get really important for understanding the whole mythology of the show. During this incident involving stolen government technology, Henry is momentarily transported to another dimension and exposed to the influence of a shadowy entity. This exposure changes his blood and his personality in crucial ways. Dr. Brenner, who survived his own trip to this dark dimension back in 1943, somehow recovers Henry's spyglass from this incident, which eventually leads him to track down the Creel family. In 1959, the Creels moved to a lavish new home in Hawkins, Indiana. About a month after they settle in, Henry discovers something terrifying and exhilarating about himself. He has psychokinetic and telepathic abilities. He can move things with his mind, and he can get inside people's heads. Now, a normal kid might be freaked out by this, but Henry is not a normal kid. That exposure to the shadow entity in Nevada did something to him, warped something important about who he is. Instead of being scared of his powers, he starts using them to terrorize the neighborhood in secret. He kills animals, he torments people, and he keeps it all hidden from his family while growing to resent the mundane normalcy of human society. Then comes the night that changes everything. The Creel family is having dinner when Henry decides he's done pretending to be normal. He uses his abilities to kill his mother Virginia and his sister Alice in the most brutal way imaginable, snapping their bones and gouging out their eyes. His father Victor is trapped in a trance, forced to witness the horror but unable to stop it. But here's the thing, Henry pushed himself too hard. He overexerted his powers and collapsed into a coma. When Victor finally snaps out of the trance, he finds his wife and daughter dead, and his son unconscious, and he has no idea what actually happened. The police assume Victor is the murderer since he's the only conscious person at the scene, and he gets arrested and eventually sent to Penhurst Mental Hospital where he'll spend the rest of his life. But Henry doesn't die. While he's comatose, he falls into the custody of none other than Dr. Martin Brenner, who has been tracking him ever since the Nevada incident. Brenner brings the boy to Hawkins National Laboratory, which has been operating secret experiments since the CIA officially sanctioned Project MKUltra in 1953. When Henry finally wakes up, Brenner is fascinated by what he's found. Here's a child with actual psychic abilities, something Brenner has been searching for ever since his own brush with the other side. He designates Henry as the first of a new series of test subjects and tattoos 001 on his forearm. Henry Creel is now officially 1. Over the next 2 decades, Brenner becomes obsessed with replicating Henry's powers in other children. He starts by taking blood from Henry and infusing it into pregnant women, hoping their children will inherit similar abilities. But he also knows Henry is dangerous, unpredictable, and far too powerful to let run free. So, Brenner has a device called Soteria implanted into Henry's neck, which inhibits his powers and keeps him docile. Henry is essentially a prisoner in the lab, forced to work as an orderly, while Brenner uses him as a template to create more psychic children. In 1969, Brenner and his associates kidnap a 5-year-old girl named Kali Prasad from London, England. She has the ability to create powerful illusions, making people see things that aren't there. She becomes Subject 8. Then in 1970, a woman named Terry Ives participates in the MKUltra experiments without knowing she's pregnant. Brenner has been infusing her with Henry's blood, and on June 7, 1971, Terry gives birth to a baby girl. Brenner immediately takes the child, names her 11, and records the birth as a miscarriage. Terry spends years trying to get her daughter back, even infiltrating the lab with a gun in 1974. But she's captured and subjected to electroshock therapy so severe it leaves her in a permanent catatonic state. Meanwhile, Kelly manages to escape Hawkins' lab in 1978 using her illusion powers to get out, and eventually making her way to Chicago, where she forms a gang and dedicates herself to hunting down and killing former lab employees as revenge. Now we get to September 1909, and this is where the entire real Stranger Things story actually begins. By this point, Brenner has created a whole group of children with various psychic abilities, but 11 is special. She's the most powerful of them all, having been infused with Henry's blood before she was even born. The other kids are jealous and cruel to her, and she struggles in Brenner's tests while the others succeed. But Henry sees something in 11. He's been working as an orderly in the lab this whole time. His powers suppressed by the Soteria device, and he starts secretly helping her, encouraging her, making her stronger. On September 8, 1979, Henry manipulates 11 into removing the Soteria device from his neck. He tells her it's a tracking device, that Brenner uses it to control him, and innocent little 11 believes him because he's been kind to her when no one else was. The moment that chip comes out, Henry's powers come flooding back, and he proceeds to massacre everyone in the laboratory. He kills all the other test subjects, all the staff, and all the security guards. He incapacitates Brenner but doesn't finish him off. Then he finds 11 in the Rainbow Room and reveals his true plan. He wants her to join him. He sees human civilization as a plague that needs to be wiped out, and he thinks the two of them together could reshape the world. 11 refuses. Despite being just a child, despite having been abused and isolated her entire life, she recognizes that what Henry is proposing is monstrous. A telekinetic battle breaks out between them, and somehow, impossibly, 11 overpowers the more experienced Henry. She channels everything she has into one massive blast of psychic energy that tears open a gate to another dimension and sends Henry flying through it. He's banished to this interdimensional hellscape, this realm of darkness and decay that exists outside of normal reality. 11 collapses into a coma from the exertion, and when she wakes up, she has no memory of what happened. Brenner reviews the security footage and sees everything, and he becomes very interested in figuring out exactly where Henry ended up and what happened to him. So, where did Henry go? He found himself in a strange realm populated by humanoid creatures, a desolate wasteland of ash and darkness. At some point during his time there, he discovered a mass of living particles, this swirling cloud of dark matter that seemed to have some kind of consciousness. Using his powers, Henry reshaped these particles into a form that pleased him, creating what would later become known as the Mind Flayer. He essentially took the raw, chaotic energy of this dimension and molded it into a weapon, a hive mind that he could control. Henry Creel became Vecna, and he started planning his revenge. Back in the regular world, 11 eventually wakes up from her coma but has become amnesiac. She doesn't remember the massacre, doesn't remember banishing Henry, doesn't even remember her own strength. Brenner continues his experiments on her over the next 4 years, testing her abilities, pushing her limits, all while keeping her isolated in the lab. Then, on November 6, 1983, everything changes again. Brenner has 11 attempt to make psychic contact with a Russian spy as part of a Cold War surveillance program. But instead of finding the spy, 11 makes contact with something else entirely. She touches the Demogorgon, one of the creatures from the dimension Henry was banished to. This contact is like turning on a beacon, and it triggers the formation of a gate between dimensions, right there in Hawkins' lab. The Demogorgon comes through, kills a scientist, and 11 panics and escapes the facility through a drain pipe. That same night, 12-year-old boy named Will Byers is biking home from his friend Mike Wheeler's house after a game of Dungeons & Dragons. The Demogorgon finds him on the road and drags him into the Upside Down, the dark mirror version of Hawkins that exists on the other side of the gate. Will manages to survive in this hellish landscape for about a week, hiding in the Dimensions version of his fort, Castle Byers, and trying to communicate with his mother Joyce through flickering lights. But the Demogorgon eventually catches up to him, and this is where things get really interesting. Will gets captured and taken to the upside-down version of the Hawkins Public Library. There, Vecna himself appears. This is the first time we learn that Vecna was involved from the very beginning, that Will's abduction wasn't random but part of a larger plan. Vecna has a tendril forced into Will's mouth, infecting him with particles of the Mind Flayer. He tells the unconscious boy that their plan can finally begin and that they will do such beautiful things together. Will Byers becomes a sleeper agent for Vecna, a spy who doesn't even know he's been compromised. Meanwhile, in the regular world, Eleven is found by Mike Wheeler, Dustin Henderson, and Lucas Sinclair while they're searching for their missing friend. She can barely speak, she's terrified and traumatized, but she has incredible powers and she wants to help find Will. The following week is a total mess. A girl named Barbara Holland gets taken by the Demogorgon and killed, while her best friend Nancy Wheeler loses her virginity to Steve Harrington at a party. Chief Jim Hopper starts investigating the disappearance and discovers Hawkins' lab is covering something up. A fake body is planted in the quarry to make everyone think Will is dead. Eventually, Hopper makes a deal with Brenner. He tells him where Eleven is hiding in exchange for him, and Joyce being allowed to enter the Upside Down to rescue Will. On the night of November 12th, Hopper and Joyce go into the Upside Down through the gate at the lab, find Will attached to a tendril in the library wall, and manage to revive him and bring him back. At the same time, Eleven faces off against the Demogorgon at Hawkins Middle School, disintegrating both the monster and seemingly herself in a massive display of psychic power. But Eleven doesn't die. She wakes up in the upside-down version of the school and eventually finds her way back through one of the temporary gates the Demogorgon left behind. Hopper discovers her and takes her to live in his grandfather's cabin in the woods, where she has to stay hidden from both the government agents still looking for her and from her friends who think she's gone. The gate at Hawkins' lab isn't fully closed though, and underground tunnels start spreading beneath Hawkins. A secondary entrance to the gate forms, and the Upside Down begins slowly infecting the real world. Will starts having episodes where he sees flashes of the other dimension, visions of a massive spider-like creature in the clouds that he calls the Shadow Monster. The particles Vecna infected him with are still inside him, and they're growing stronger. In late October 1984, almost exactly a year after Will's abduction, things escalate rapidly. Will is fully possessed by the Mind Flayer after being caught in a storm of spores in the Upside Down during one of his visions. He becomes a spy for the Hive Mind, unknowingly feeding information to Vecna about what the humans are planning. Meanwhile, Eleven has been living in isolation with Hopper for almost a year, growing more powerful but also more frustrated and lonely. She eventually runs away and finds her mother Terry in her catatonic state, learning the truth about her birth and Brenner's experiments. She even tracks down her sister Kaylee in Chicago and briefly joins her gang, but ultimately decides she needs to go back to Hawkins to help her friends. The climax comes when the group realizes they need to close the gate to stop the Mind Flayer, but first they have to get it out of Will or it will kill him. Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy essentially torture Will with heat at Hopper's cabin, making his body so uncomfortable that the Mind Flayer particles are forced to flee. Meanwhile, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, Max Mayfield, who's a new girl in town, and a reluctant Steve Harrington set the underground tunnel network on fire to distract the Demodogs, which are basically dog-sized Demogorgons that serve the Hive Mind. And Eleven, reunited with Hopper, goes to the gate at Hawkins' lab and uses every ounce of her power to seal it shut. The gate closes. The Mind Flayer is cut off from its army in the real world, and the Demodogs all die. Everyone thinks it's over. Hawkins' lab is shut down thanks to investigative journalism by Nancy and Jonathan. Barbara Holland finally gets a proper funeral. Hopper gets fake papers making Eleven legally his adopted daughter Jane Hopper. There's a school dance where all the kids get to be normal for one night, but the Mind Flayer is still out there in the Upside Down, still connected to Vecna, and it's not done with Hawkins yet. Fast forward to the summer of 1985. The Russians have been trying to open their own gate to the Upside Down, and they've secretly built a massive underground base beneath the brand new Starourt Mall in Hawkins. On June 28th, they finally succeed in cracking open a gate, and the power surge from this event reawakens a dormant piece of the Mind Flayer that was left behind in the real world when Eleven closed the main gate. This fragment starts possessing rats, melting them down into biological material and building itself a new physical body. It also starts possessing people, starting with Billy Hargrove, Max's older stepbrother. Billy becomes the human host for the Mind Flayer, and he starts kidnapping other people to feed to the growing monster. They're all taken and absorbed into this flesh monster that the Mind Flayer is constructing. The goal is simple: kill Eleven. The Mind Flayer knows she's the only one powerful enough to stop it, so it's building an army specifically designed to hunt her down. Meanwhile, Hopper and Joyce discover the Russian operation after noticing strange electromagnetic interference around town. They kidnap a Russian scientist named Alexei who explains what's happening, and they team up with conspiracy theorist Murray Bauman to try to shut down the gate. Dustin, having just returned from summer camp with a girlfriend named Susie, who nobody believes exists, intercepts a Russian transmission and recruits Steve and his new coworker Robin Buckley to help decode it. They end up discovering the secret Russian base beneath the mall. Everything comes together on the 4th of July. The flesh monster attacks the cabin where Eleven is hiding and actually manages to wound her, leaving a piece of itself inside her leg that she has to telekinetically rip out. This trauma causes her powers to stop working entirely. Hopper, Joyce, and Murray infiltrate the Russian base to shut down the gate machine. Billy, in a moment of redemption, after Eleven reaches through the Mind Flayer's control to remind him of his humanity, sacrifices himself to protect her from the monster. And when Joyce turns off the machine, the explosion closes the gate and kills the flesh monster, but Hopper is trapped on the platform and seemingly dies in the blast. Except he doesn't die. Hopper jumps off the platform at the last second and is captured by retreating Russian soldiers. He ends up in a Soviet prison camp in Kamchatka, where the Russians have been keeping their own captured Demogorgon and experimenting with pieces of the Mind Flayer. The Byers family decides to leave Hawkins and move to California, taking Eleven with them. She still can't use her powers, and she's lost her adoptive father. It's the lowest point of her life. Then comes March 1986, and this is when Vecna finally makes his big move. He's been biding his time in Dimension X, which is like this higher realm above the Upside Down where he's been building his power and his lair. He starts reaching out to vulnerable teenagers in Hawkins, people suffering from trauma and guilt, and he appears to them in visions as a grandfather clock, drawing them into a trance before killing them in the most horrific way possible, breaking their bones and caving in their skulls while they levitate in the air. Each death opens a small gate between dimensions. His first victim is Chrissy Cunningham, the head cheerleader who's been suffering from an eating disorder and trauma from her abusive mother. She's killed right in front of Eddie Munson, the leader of the Hellfire Club, and he becomes the prime suspect. Then Vecna kills Fred Benson, a student journalist racked with guilt over a car accident. Max Mayfield is his next target, and she's been suffering badly since Billy's death, isolating herself from her friends and sinking into depression. But Max manages to escape. She's in Vecna's mindscape, about to die, when her friends play her favorite song, Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill, through her headphones. The music creates a connection to reality, a lifeline she can grab onto, and she literally runs through Vecna's nightmare dimension and escapes back to the real world. This is when the group starts putting the pieces together. They visit Victor Creel in Penhurst Mental Hospital and learn about the murders in 1959. They realize the demon that killed his family and the creature killing people now are the same entity. Nancy even gets captured in Vecna's mind and shown his origin story, how he was Henry Creel, how he became one, how Eleven banished him, and how he created the Mind Flayer. Meanwhile, Eleven has been getting bullied relentlessly at her new school in California. In a moment of rage, she smashes a roller skate into her bully Angela's face and gets arrested. Dr. Sam Owens, who took over Hawkins' lab after Brenner was believed dead, shows up and offers her a way to get her powers back. He takes her to a secret facility in Nevada, where Brenner, who survived the Demogorgon attack in 1983, has been waiting. Through a combination of isolation tank therapy and forced memory recovery, Eleven relives the massacre of 1909 and finally remembers the truth about who she is and what she did to Henry. Everything comes together for a massive assault on Vecna. The Hawkins crew splits into teams. Nancy, Steve, Robin, and Eddie go into the Upside Down to attack Vecna's physical body in the Creel house attic. Max volunteers as bait, letting Vecna capture her so Eleven can piggyback into her mind and fight him psychically. And down in Kamchatka, Hopper, Joyce, and Murray, who staged a rescue mission to save him from the Russian prison, attack the Mind Flayer fragment and the captive Demogorgon, hoping that hurting the hive mind will weaken Vecna. The plan almost works. Eddie dies heroically distracting the Demobats. Nancy, Steve, and Robin set Vecna on fire and shoot him full of holes, sending him crashing through a window. But before they can finish him off, he's already killed Max. Her heart stops, her bones break, her eyes are destroyed. 4 gates open simultaneously at the spots where Vecna killed his 4 victims, and they tear through Hawkins before converging at the center of town, killing dozens of people. Eleven, in a desperate move, uses her powers to restart Max's heart and bring her back from death. But Max remains in a coma, her consciousness trapped somewhere between dimensions. Vecna survives. He escapes into the abyss, the dimension above the upside down where his real lair is located. He's badly wounded but still alive, and his plan is still in motion. The gates tear through Hawkins, and the government covers it up as an earthquake. The military moves in to quarantine the town. The Byers family moves back to Hawkins and into the Wheeler house because they have nowhere else to go. Hopper returns from Russia and reunites with Joyce and Eleven. And for over a year, the group conducts crawls into the Upside Down, searching for Vecna but never finding him because he's hiding in a dimension they can't reach. Then November 1987 arrives, almost exactly 4 years after Will was first taken. Vecna has been busy. He's been appearing to children at Hawkins Elementary School as an imaginary friend called Mr. Watsit, grooming them to become his new vessels. His first target is Holly Wheeler, Mike and Nancy's little sister. A Demogorgon attacks the Wheeler house, badly injuring Karen and Ted, and drags Holly into the Upside Down and then further into the abyss, to a mindscape version of the Creel house where Vecna keeps his victims trapped. The group discovers that Will's connection to the hive mind never fully went away, and now he can actually channel it, using the Mind Flayer's own powers against it. He's like a sorcerer, able to tap into the psychic network that connects all the creatures of the Upside Down. But Vecna can use this connection too, and he uses Will to spy on the group and locate Max's body in the hospital. More children are taken, a total of 12 including Holly, and Vecna gathers them all in his mindscape to use as vessels for his final plan. Max, whose consciousness has been wandering through Vecna's memories this whole time, manages to find Holly in the mindscape and helps her escape. She's been surviving in a place called the Rachel Caves, a spot in Vecna's memory that he's terrified to enter because it contains his most traumatic memory. Holly discovers what that memory is. It's the moment when young Henry opened a briefcase in a Nevada cave and was first exposed to the Mind Flayer particles, the moment that changed him forever. But before the girls can escape together, Max has to return to her body while Holly is recaptured. The final battle is massive. The group drives a truck through the gate into the Upside Down and splits up. Eleven and Kali, who was rescued from a military base where she'd been held captive, used the sensory deprivation tank at Hawkins' lab to enter the void and attack Vecna psychically. Will uses his connection to the hive mind to help them, overcoming his fear of being used again. Meanwhile, a team including Nancy, Steve, Jonathan, and Dustin sets up a bomb near the exotic matter that's holding the bridge between dimensions stable, planning to collapse the whole thing once everyone escapes. Joyce takes down Vecna with an axe, repeatedly hacking at his neck while flashbacks of all the trauma he's caused play across the screen. It's bloody, brutal, and deeply cathartic. The children are freed, vomiting up Mind Flayer particles as they're pulled from their cocoons. The bomb goes off and the Upside Down begins to collapse, but Eleven has to stay behind because Dr. K and the military are waiting on the other side to capture her, so Eleven dies in the explosion. The epilogue jumps to May 1989. The kids graduate high school. Dustin gives a valedictorian speech about finding meaning in unlikely friendships and rips off his gown to reveal a Hellfire Club shirt in honor of Eddie. Nancy has dropped out of college to work at a newspaper. Steve coaches Little League Baseball. Robin is dating Vicky. Lucas and Max are back together, and Max can walk again. Joyce and Hopper get engaged and plan to move to Montauk. And in the basement of the Wheeler house, one final Dungeons & Dragons campaign brings the original party together one last time. Mike shares a theory. When Eleven supposedly died, the military had these sonic weapons active that should have blocked her powers. So how was she standing there so defiantly? He thinks Kaylee created an illusion of Eleven dying while the real Eleven escaped. He chooses to believe she's out there somewhere, living her life, finally free from everyone who wanted to use her. And in a final shot, we see a figure hiking through a beautiful wilderness, reaching a clearing with 3 waterfalls, the peaceful ending Mike always dreamed about in his campaigns. Whether it's real or just what the characters choose to believe, Stranger Things ends with hope, with the idea that after everything they have been through, these kids might actually get their happily ever after.